Hey all and welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Sorry for the break, guys. We were fresh out of content and whatnot, so we had to have a little bit of a break and, you know, get the whole gang together for this sesh, and we're basically going to kick things off by going after the Master Sword, so let's go hunt down a few shrines that I've been neglecting.
Yeah, I think... Well, one of them definitely we've already come across in the course of this playthrough, as long as it wasn't edited out, I think. The other one is one that Tom started sort of in his time off. Basically, you go have a chat with this Zora girl by a fountain called Laruta. I think you have to speak to her about twice, and she sort of starts off the ceremonial song, which then points you in the direction of Trello here, who's standing over looking for his delightful ceremonial trident, which he dropped off the edge of a bridge, because of course.
What a plonker.
He's old. Old people fall sometimes, even over and over, because if you take the ceremonial trident, he'll drop another one in there, because...
That's some kind of dissonance between gameplay and story, I suppose.
What's cool about this is that as long as you've got the, I think it's the light scale trident, so basically what Tom is using right now, you can actually just get this shrine straight away. But the way that you're meant to do it is, hop down here and go fishing for the delight that is the ceremonial trident.
Wait, and not even like in the classic like Zelda fishing, you know, like fishing minigame fishing. No, like just dive on down and try to get it, alright? Like, remember how you got the silver and gold scales? Same shenanigans.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you can use magnesis once you're close enough. I think it would probably also work if you used Cryonis to just kind of pull it out, but since it is metal, it's a little bit finicky, because obviously the staff bit of the trident is really bloody thin.
Sure is, mate.
So that's what happens when we all wanted the best physics, the most realistic physics, but are y'all prepared to game with the most realistic physics? I think not. I don't think so.
Nope. I wasn't, man. I wasn't. So, now that we have the ceremonial trident, which is similar in build to the light scale trident, but nowhere near as powerful, we gotta take it to a certain waterfall and do a certain thing.
So I think they're called the Veiled Falls, because obviously they're a waterfall that creates a veil.
Yes?
It's more Zelda 1 shenanigans, guys. Like, there was a lot of fun shit behind waterfalls. It's kind of what gaming has evolved from. Like, like, to the point, like, that's always one of the tricky things about Zelda is that, like, you look at its past and a lot of it became just so influential that, like, you need almost like the context of just the time that particular Zelda came out and whether that particular idea was as revolutionary at that time, because anytime you look back at it nowadays, it's like, oh, well, that's just a thing all games do. It's like, yeah, but they're all doing it because Zelda did it, is the thing.
Now, certainly the method, but I think you have to stab downwards.
Yes, you do.
And I'm not doing this correctly, so I may be getting a visit from Mifa soon.
It's only because she loves you.
You know, we had this heartfelt farewell, and then 5 minutes later it's, oh, hi, I'm back again. Didn't think you'd need my power so soon. It's kinda concerning, I'm gonna be honest.
Ah, well.
Or if it's my playthrough, it's like, hi again, I'm back. I'll be sharpening my knife. There's your Final Fantasy IX reference for you friends.
Good. I'm gonna take Frog. Why not, while we're here.
He's the best Chrono Trigger character. Why not take him?
So, I mean, I think the way that the game expects you to get that is by swift swimming in the Zora armor up to the top of the waterfall and then leaping off. But you do have to be aware that obviously that is quite a high height, so you will want to use your paraglider as you drop. And you need to just pick your moment very carefully when you go down. So Rivali's Gale is definitely the safest option, as evidenced by the fact that, we were able to, tackle that 3 times before we got it and we didn't die. Whereas evidence of a previous recording session where attempts were made, it was just like, wee splat. It was not pretty.
That was pretty funny.
Like bugs on the windshield.
The hard thing about that is that when you're descending from such a high height, your momentum preservation when you do a jumping attack is really hard. So, it's not like when you do the attack, you go straight down. If you have any movement going in any direction, then it's magnified once you start the attack. So, you need to basically Angry Birds aim yourself into it. It's not as simple as being on top and doing a jumping attack, especially because there's natural wind that will blow you in a direction. So, yeah, using Rivali's Gale makes it so much easier than using jumping off and being a crazy kamikaze person.
Yeah, don't do that.
So I have a question. Just since this is going to be a more shrine focused segment here, is that so with this shrine, the puzzle was all pre-shrine. It was the goal was essentially to access the shrine, and then the shrine itself was just the reward. Versus you have shrines where, very easy to geographically locate. You then have the challenge to be the shrine itself. And then you have some that are the combination of both, where you have an overworld puzzle that leads into sometimes a just as long inner dungeon puzzle. So I wanted to extend this question to you guys was, do you think that the game is pretty consistent in terms of if it gives you a pretty decent pre-dungeon challenge, that the rewards are usually worth it, that the whole no dungeon for some of them, if that's a good or bad thing, just kind of how you feel about that?
I know I personally, I think that it's great. I definitely feel like every time there was a sufficient enough challenge to get to the dungeon, I was always thinking to myself, there's got to be a reward here, and there is. Whenever you do a hard puzzle on the overworld and it unlocks the shrine there, and you go up to check, okay, what is this? Almost always it's a reward one, and I felt the game was really fair about that. And I appreciated the fact that then that meant that not every single sort of puzzle was done in a shrine, right? It helps for the variety. So
yeah.
Personally, I thought that it was not only really good for the actual, variety, but it felt like it rewarded me every time. So I personally really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I sit very much in the same area with that. I think there's maybe a few situations where there are certain shrines where maybe the trial to get in didn't seem necessarily as challenging as perhaps it might have been, and it gave you sort of one of the blessing shrines, and other times you're just like, I've just done that really awkward thing and now you're making me do more awkward things. But on the whole, I would say that they definitely got the balance right. And I think that is sort of really cool. I love the whole idea of the shrines, that they are great and they are a lot of fun to experience. I think the one thing that they maybe could have just done with is a slightly... Well, we've said it before, but it's that whole thing of maybe just making the themes of the beasts a bit more different in terms of their visual style, and I think that would have been just more effective and would have made things a little bit more engaging, I suppose, in terms of how you look at them.
Can I just say, I find it very strange that the Cobble Crusher is regarded as a metal item.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a very large slab of rock, but who knows, maybe it's, magnetic, maybe there's some iron in it. I don't know. Either way, just surprised me to see that counted.
I think it just goes on that technicality that there are like iron bits in it. So just in the game's logic, I guess they just threw it into the category that it is made of metal because the metal bits would have, metal properties like being conductive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's what it seems more intended to be, is to more indicate whether if your weapon is conductive or not. Whether, especially in this challenge for this shrine, this was one of the ones I actually did a lot later. I wasn't able to get too much lightning protection. I never caught the rubber kink suit that makes you so immune to all the lightning bolts. So I was trying to do this one for a minute and a half, and late game too, like with plenty of hearts. It was annoying.
So I believe that actually one of the rubber items you get in this shrine, or you can get in this shrine anyway,
which is baffling. Which I don't know, kind of leads into the whole like, was this the right reward for this? Which like, kind of yeah, like sort of the whole, well, prove that you can handle the lightning without it to earn it, but also like, I really needed that for this one. Just FYI.
Tom, as an idea, with the orange orb, you may or may not want to try firing a couple of regular arrows at it to knock it off.
Ah, good idea.
When in doubt, bomb and arrows.
Yes. So one thing that's quite cool is with the red orb, one of the things that you can do is you can actually hit it over onto the plateau from the platform where it's standing anyway, which is also always quite helpful. But yeah, you definitely have to do fling it over from where we flung the red one over for this one.
Red orb also does more damage, but that's for another time.
Reference not noticed.
I mean, when the company tries to make Zelda 1, but 3D and modern, like, you gotta throw every reference you can, every single one. And to be fair, to the credit, the whole red armor, blue armor / white armor. It's a blue ring that gives you like a purplish white tunic in the first game, but then like the Link's Awakening DX, then it's very red or blue there. So they've brought that around and kept that around. I mean, every once in a while they'll throw that. I think it's kind of like also why it's easy for the Smash Brother games too. Gives Link nice consistent color palettes there, but it is kind of weird that, like, with the whole outfit changings with the different outfits, that there isn't like a aside from like amiibo references, there's not like a red armor tunic, a blue armor tunic. That's very much like a hard line to those. But I mean, it's been done in Zelda, so it'll come back. It'll be around.
Trying to be epic.
Looks like that one's a little bit heavier than the other. The other one was nice and easy to hit. This one made of a thicker material.
I mean, the thing is that you can actually go and you are able to shoot that one off of its pedestal. I'm guessing it's just that the maybe there's just something in the game just going, I don't know what you're trying to do, so
RNGesus frowns upon you.
I know how to get it off of its pedestal. You're not as pretty as everyone thinks you are. Alright, give it a moment.
Oh no. Why is he saying such mean things to your green orb? See? That worked. What the fuck?
yeah, I don't know why it was being so finicky on that one, but there we go.
Lightning challenges in general were kind of, when my first playthrough, they were my bane. This one and then the Spring of Courage for that one just messed me up hardcore because of and I didn't have any of the good weapons. Like I didn't have the electric ability that Link himself gets, which probably would have made them way easier. So it's kind of it's definitely some of those challenges that are in this game that's they can be super grueling unless you have the one tool that makes it instantly simpler. Like it's almost Mega Man-y, where it's like, wow, why was this so difficult this way but so simple with just one different item? Like, But that could also be good game design, I guess.
Tom's experience with the orange orb there is like me playing golf, and it's like, you're right by the hole, just a small putt in, tiny, and you just miss, and it happens twice in a row, and your whole family's looking at you, and they all like golf, so they're looking at you, and they're like, how come you're not good at golf?
You picked line driver.
You have selected no. Over par. So there we go, the trial of thunder is done, and when we come out of here, I don't think it'll be thundering anymore, so cheers, Hylia.
I know, it's just like you couldn't, stopped it thundering beforehand, and then maybe given us the thunder afterwards when we got the rubber suit.
That would be a trial, would it, Richie?
It's true, but then there's a bloody trial in here, so...
This is what I was saying, like, the game has a variety on, like, these setups. Sometimes you have these pre-trial trials into another trial, but the last one was just trial into a reward, and some of them are just walk into my shrine. May I get you a glass of lemonade? Like, it's... Which, I mean, to be fair, it's all in line with... The in-story explanation is just so good and broad that it's pretty fantastic. Just the whole concept of them being a training regiment for heroes in the past. So, like, I mean, it's really good. They kind of covered all their bases on that explanation to just have fun and just have the wide variety that we see here of Volume of Trial 2 dungeons.
To be fair about this one, it's not a super difficult one. In fact, I would argue it's cathartic to Bomberman your way through stuff. So, it's like, in this case, even though it is a little bit of a puzzle afterwards, it's so kind of minor, especially compared to what you got in, that it's like, hey, yes, I can take that. And there it is. We got ourselves the rubber armor, which the full suit makes Link look like he visits certain, downtown areas at night alone,
What we're saying is that Link knows a mistress, but he's not allowed to call her that yet. But just with this puzzle as well, saying that it's more Bomberman-esque, it's a cathartic puzzle. Like, this is something that you were mostly supposed to be using your gameplay knowledge and your inventory knowledge to get into the dungeon. That at this point, you're very familiar with how bombs function. This would not be a puzzle that someone's like, wait, I can do... Like, this is definitely this is the puzzle to just kind of let loose, be more destructive as opposed to, trying to solve the puzzle here. Like, you're going to get the solution just by breaking the targets, essentially, and that's going to get you to the end of this dungeon. Little magnesis, but again, these are not really like a high game concept, like kind of like how understanding that the balls had different weights and therefore require different methods to get off the pedestal. The solution is use the bombs, use them. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, and also use the block to make progress. It's a bit of a funky one in terms of the order you got to do certain bits in. Yeah, basically, you definitely want to blow up the middle one here. Actually, I think you can blow up both of them. Just maybe, don't be standing there when you decide to blow them up.
It's okay, Richie. I have learned.
And then I think what you can do to just make your life a little bit easier, if you can't grab the block at the top level, is bring your metal block up to this level, climb up to the next level, and then you want to drop it on the button underneath, because you can see it then. And obviously you've delivered yourself a little path.
You give a man a blessing of a mermaid, and all of a sudden he thinks he's immortal and can just blow up bombs willy-nilly. The shame.
I'll definitely say I have a bit of a Mandela effect with this game. I think because of both Breath of the Wild, or rather, Hyrule Warriors there, as well as Smash Bros. In my mind, the rune bombs don't affect Link, and I completely forgot that, no, in this game, they will hurt you. They're not free, but because in all those spin-offs, you can use them wherever and you're fine. So that's definitely a thing where, whenever Tom hits himself with a bomb, which I'd be doing right now because I completely forgot that they don't necessarily not hurt you in this, despite the spin-offs.
Alright, the last one.
It's actually really messed up on Nintendo's behalf. Like, you would think with how scrutinous they are of the to be of this series, it's got to do this and this. You think they wouldn't be messing with the gamer's mind to play the games that are simultaneously like your most recent in the series.
It's very true.
Just sort of that kind of hard contradiction. Like there's not like a thing. I mean, I guess like, you know, Mario has specific Smash Brother things, but it's like he doesn't do something that completely contradicts what happens in the game. To me, it's like, it seems kind of. But I know it's a quality of life thing. It's all down to the mechanics and the game feels of those specific games, and it just wouldn't make sense probably for those games for Link to have that friendly fire with his bombs. Versus in this game, again, one of the themes of this game is that the wilderness, that the wild, the world is dangerous, and that it can kill you. And so that should extend to your inventory, which is your main way of destruction, of violence, of, you know, engaging and fighting the world back. It only makes sense that those should be just as dangerous to you as they are to the wild.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, Tom, what you're looking for this particular shrine is the peak of Mount Lanayru.
Okay. I will go there after I visit Toto Lake because there is a thing that I want.
Get the thing. You want it. It's yours.
Oh, jeez.
Ironically, we're going to Toto Lake after we've been blessed by the rains of the Thundera Plains.
So all I can think is it's a whole like prestige reference, and just every time Link teleports, that Link is gone. Like, that Link no longer exists, and whenever he teleports back, this is a new Link, completely new. Like, yeah.
The next version of Hyrule Story is just going to have the timeline, and there's going to be like 50 lines on Breath of the Wild, and it just ends in a thing that says fuck it.
Like, I mean, to be fair, like, you look back on that concept of that, you know, failed timeline and just how controversial it is, but it's like most things nowadays that do a timeline, like, those are taken as like part of it. Like most medias that include time loops in general, part of that time loop is used in a horror aspect to be like, you know, that these were failed attempts, that all of this effort, all this work is still just within the fishbowl of effort, that like it's still having no effect on the greater ocean or the greater world at all. Like, it's just, you're just splashing around in a bowl and making waves in there, and it's like, oh, that's awful. It's beautiful, and it's like I said, it's one of my favorite things that you see a lot in more Japanese type horror, but you see it like in all types of horror. Anytime they try to like make the scale of time like just meaningless and be like, no, your struggle is endless and almost repeating, kinda.
I like how we have this very deep conversation while we're giving Tumbo some frogs.
Well, Tumbo's hungry. Tumbo gotta eat.
No, he's trying to sell them so, you know, he can make ends meet because his mum's fucking probably dead.
Tom, money can be exchanged for food and services.
Yeah, but better for alive people to access those services, Maxie.
It's true, but also isn't the line actually goods and services?
Look alright.
I ain't gotta say every Simpsons quote exactly the same way Simpsons said it for y'all to get that it was from the Simpsons.
Indeed. So anyway, about Zelda and whatnot. Yes.
Because that is the game that we are currently playing.
Any y'all played any other Zeldas other than this one recently?
I'm going in the complete opposite direction.
Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, that's my most recent Zelda game.
I mean, if you want to get pedantic, this is my most recent one.
Well, yes, because it is the game that you were playing a minute ago, so...
I'm just curious, because when we were starting this, I did another Zelda 1, just like replayed through again, just, you know, feel the vibes and make myself happy, and it does that. It's, when you're able to like beat it really quick, it kind of has like that Portal effect where it's like, you know, I'm just gonna like binge it real quick. Like, let me get all of the emotions from it in a bite-sized amount. But then I also did go back to replaying a bit more of the Oracle games. Just, I think it's always fun with Zelda games to just play two really different ones. It's like, it's the same franchise, so like, kind of any threads you start to tie together between the two are just really fun. to just keep the whole series cohesive and whole there. This ability. Did you guys already like gush about or like talk about like this ability in the world, the whole waterfall climbing? Because I think it's really snazzy and fun.
It definitely feels to me the closest to like a actual item, like from a classic Zelda game, because it really expands the amount of places you can go. Like for instance, once you getting into Hyrule Castle, there's a bunch of waterfalls in there, and you know, if you have that by now, you can explore a lot of Hyrule Castle even without some of the other powers that are good for exploring there. So I think it's an awesome ability for just increasing your ability to travel and your ability to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you take one of the waterfalls in, I'm pretty sure that you could technically, if you were good enough, get the best shield in the game at this point already.
Absolutely.
See, I'd almost make the argument that like with Mipha's blessing, her gift. I'm just gonna call them all gifts, guys. I know they have like specific names.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're the champion abilities with Mipha's being just a revive. I mean, it's a safety net ability. It's there for the players that need it, but or for players that are creative with it. Like you can be pretty creative, I'm sure, with Mipha, just with the ability to get instant hearts back. But in terms of like Tyner said, exploration-wise, in terms of overworld use, in terms of making progress elsewhere in the game, I'd argue the waterfall swimming ability is more the true reward for completing the Zora area and giving that access to you. It's just an issue with the game where, you know, they focused on having the specific starter items, you know, the specific starter ruins, and being able to just use those abilities throughout the game. But so I'm sure they had just kind of difficulty with how what ability was tied to the champion gift versus would be tied to an item versus tied to equipment. And like, so the waterfly, I see it still kind of weird just because it also is tied to having like the whole Zora outfit together to be able to do. But I honestly, like, I feel when you get Rivali's Gale, like, it opens up everything. A lot of stuff also opens up when you get that waterfall ability, so I kind of put them on that same, like, wow, this is a very useful item level there.
That's fair enough.
I would definitely say the one thing that Mipha's Grace does give you for exploration is if you ever need to go somewhere that is really far down. For example, there's a couple places that are like really deep, like you would not be able to even glide there because it just takes so much stamina. It does give you that ability to, I mean, I guess you could like free plummet and then open at the bottom. You can do that, but it does give you that ability to more easily go and descend through places because you can fall and take fall damage and you're fine.
And then just glitch-wise, which just always comes with that asterisk where it's like, you can do it, but we know not everyone's doing it, but just canceling out all of that fall momentum with Link's basically item tossing window. For some weird reason, when it goes into that perspective, I guess the game isn't like keeping track still of like what his momentum is. So it can be used like right at the end of the fall, like Link just kind of like takes out his item, just about throws it, and it cancels out the fall damage as well. So that was useful. That was kind of how a lot of the people were getting out of the Great Plateau at first, because it was like, oh no, if you can actually just survive the fall, you'll be fine. But that's when they learned the next level of protection there with the impenetrable fog, which again, like it's great to see such futility at work there. It's like all this work, all this effort to escape the plateau, and there was a whole nother veil just waiting you to be like, nope, try again.
I will get you, chest. Oh, yes.
So I don't think I ever went up here. This is definitely a place that I'm looking at. Like, there's probably some story to this that, it looks like there's like a ruined, not like a Zora place, but this looks more closer to like Hylian. So it's like, really makes you think. But hey, that's cool.
Booyah.
Ah.
And architecture is very meticulous in Breath of the Wild, with it being like destroyed ruins. I know with a lot of the material that they're releasing now, because with Zelda games, after a while, they start to release the art books, they start to release the historias that go along with it, kind of like how Final Fantasy has the Ultimanias that accompany those games. With Zelda, with Breath of the Wild, they've made certain note of specific tribes and specific architecture tied along with it. So they make a certain point that all of the architecture in Hyrule that resembles itself in that Hylian architecture is meant to resemble itself. It's meant to be that, like, these are specifically Hylian ruins because they very specifically set other ruins with it. Tribes like the Zoa or the Zoe. It's Zions. It's a weird translation one there, but it's basically a newer tribe in the Zelda canon now that all of the more the more animalistic ruins that you see in the southeast, so statues of like the jaguars and the statues of the dragons that you see kind of around in those pillared areas, there are different architectural themes. I'm not in architecture, so it could be like, yeah, it's quite 18th century, but they look different. They're built different. If you even look at them, you're supposed to get a different vibe from the type of architecture. So with Breath of the Wild, like, you're meant to engage in it by saying, hey, these ruins are similar to these ruins, but it's not in the same area as those ruins. So from there, the gamer and the player is able to, make that own lore. It's that whole, like, what do they call it? Like, more of a archaeology type gameplay, archaeology type storytelling, as opposed to in the beginning, the Great Deku Tree. Because we've been there, we've played that. Some of us have read what the Great Deku Tree has said thousands upon thousands of times. So I do like with Breath of the Wild it going for that more like, what stories are you creating in your head from just basically the scattered ruins around, the scattered items left around. You make up the story. You create the reason of why this is here.
I definitely think that now that we've reached this sort of era of people coming up with the story on their own, those lore crafting videos, and the fact that now we're starting to see even official game companies share fan-made, lore videos. I think that now we're starting to see that idea of storytelling and legends, which, hey, that fits the title, is becoming part of the storytelling, right? These ideas of coming up with ways to, explain what is there. I mean, that's what legends are. It's people coming up with mythology to explain why things are the way they are. So I think that's real cool.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect, and I mean, maybe going to sound slightly sacrilegious to say it, and there are undoubtedly other franchises and stuff that did this sort of stuff before, and I think you've got a shrine pretty close to that, because yeah, that's where you want to go. It's that little lake.
We're not to say that Zelda made environmental storytelling. We're just saying that this was one example that people are able to make like hour-long videos of. So that comes from good source material. So that comes from the game laying good enough, sweet enough breadcrumbs.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say, which was the bit that will maybe sound slightly sacrilegious, is that the game franchise that probably has popularized that form of storytelling more than perhaps any other is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Ooh.
And I'm not saying it's the first, and I'm not saying that it's the best.
I was expecting Dark Souls.
I was ready for that as well. You're not wrong.
I can't think of any game before or since that had that level of impact in that amount of people trying to get to the bottom of stuff through little bits and pieces in the game.
I very much see Five Nights at Freddy's as part of just the big wave, and I don't. And to not use this word, I know it gets used a lot more as a pejorative, but in that more Tumblr era, I just mean that as more the time frame. Tumblr gives you basically a time, a place, a type of, and then a group of type of people that were engaging in a type of way. So like that Tumblr era of, you had a bunch of games coming out around that time that were simple for certain reasons. I believe the first Five Nights at Freddy, that was like a individual indie game. So like obviously the limitations were more monetary than anything else. But you had other stuff. Dark Souls, like we thought your answer was gonna be like that was around that time as well. And then you know it just feeds into to later games that were inspired by that era. So it is very much a movement that you could see there. But I mean, environmental storytelling is not from one particular game.
Oh yeah.
But I see this more as, you know, games achieving their true form. Kind of how I mentioned a while back.
There's a nut boy to your left!
Oh no! See it? There it is.
Fuck it.
Yeah, no, maybe not.
Leave a note.
We'll be back for that one. I'll come back later.
Okay, Nut boy.
But yeah, kind of like how protagonist now more is, it's less about, oh, you are playing along with the story, but more now you emerge from the story. I think it's also, again, just the lore and the history is less about, I found the book that said Mewtwo was born on February 6th, but now it's more just, oh, the book, oh, a research, oh, some items, and like it's something that has been built up. Like certain games did it in a certain way, so other games, when they were being developed, were like, oh shit, we could do that, we can do it that way. And so it builds and builds and builds. And so yeah, it very much is in an era, we're very much in a movement where that more environmental storytelling is being preferred, and it works because with that people are able to extrapolate. It's very more prismatic in like kind of how you can look at the game, instead of like, oh, this represents this because of this and that's that, but instead it's meant to be taken like every way. It's meant to be the 8-hour video on what it could be. That is what it is.
Coming back to what we're seeing on screen, people might notice that there is something very large and very kind of terrifying on top of this mountain.
Yes.
When I was playing this myself, I actually came up from behind. I was just climbing around, and I ended up running into it, just kind of at the side, and that was terrifying. That was honestly one of those moments that legitimately frightened me, was coming up from behind this guy and going, what the hell is on this mountain? Because I didn't get the quest, I just was exploring around, and definitely one of those moments that really, really made me go, oh man, this fills me with the same feeling of being a kid and playing Zelda and coming across something that actually terrified me, which there's a couple of.
Like a P-hat in Hyrule Fields?
Oh, no, not even that. For me, Hyrule Field having a time cycle and then the Stall Children coming out at night, that alone was enough. I turned the game off. I didn't even get there. I was too scared. Skeletons popping out? Oh.
No, but the dragons are kind of the best way that the game, you know, keeps its scale, keeps its scope. Like, even if you get to the point of the game where, like, the square footage of the map doesn't impress you, you get these things that exist in the world that are just so much more massive. And it's not even like, oh, look, it's in the skybox, you can see a dragon far away. It's not that. The dragon's there. You can fight it. You can shoot it. You'll need to help this one. Like, and they just, the size of them in comparison even to the large geographical scale, it's really, really impressive. Like the upgrade that the Volvagia model has gotten within the series is quite impressive, even though like dragons are still in the first game. The first boss of the first Zelda game is a dragon. Like they've always been in the series.
So, I don't know if you were watching some of our previous parts, but we ended up standing on top of a certain waterfall at the time when the dragon decided to, say hello, and that was fun. That was a really good sort of, awakening of, oh god, it's right in front of us.
It's right fucking in front. Dude, they're so big. Like it's so impressive just design wise, just because it's all an illusion on the again, and the game is working against having such big creatures be impressive because you're already exploring such a big world. Like you sort of get used to, like, oh yeah, the Lionels are about like what, twice as big as me. You fight a Hinox here and there and you're like, okay, this is how big things get. And then all of a sudden there's there are massive multiple dragons, like as big as kind of how they try to make the the animatronic beasts be? Like, these are just as big. They could wrap around those beasts if they wanted to.
Very true.
I haven't beat Age of Calamity yet. Can anyone confirm if the dragons make an appearance in it?
I'm pretty sure they don't, but you never know. My memory could be very flawed.
I feel like that's a cool thing that could lead to maybe a DLC character, one who fights with the dragons, whether they're shrunk down a bit or just go full Kaido in Pirate Warriors there, where you like literally Kaido, he's a character from One Piece who turns into a dragon that looks very similar to this, an Eastern style dragon, and you get to play as it at full scale, and it is the coolest thing playing as this massive dragon fighting dudes that like it's like the battles there with being the divine beasts where you just the enemies are tiny, right? Except they're actually there as opposed to just being kind of a static JPEG of 1,000 kills like they are in Age of Calamity.
This whole segment of like paragliding into the rest of the fight this is some good shit. This is video gaming. This is like when Nintendo can release a Wii U every once in a while, but goddamn, when I have to like paraglide off of the mountain to continue shooting down the possessed dragon, like, all right, I'll play along for a couple more years.
The wild thing is, this is on the Wii U. It's easy to forget. It really is.
They get me every time.
I know, obviously it runs better on the Switch, but like still, the fact that they even got this thing working on the damn thing is ridiculous.
Always with the Zelda game, like I think it's just so fascinating that like Zelda has had that gimmick for a while, but like I'm just glad that it hasn't permeated at least my brain enough to where it's like, oh yeah, Zelda's that series that they always just release whenever they do to like saddle their consoles. Like it's always something that I forget that they keep doing it. And I have to acknowledge that it keeps happening, but I always forget that. And I've never actually, luckily, ever associated Zelda with that action.
Hi, Amifa.
Aw.
Cheers, Mifa.
Mermaid kisses. Mermaid kisses.
So the nice thing is, this whole time you do have this this air around you that does let you glide fairly infinitely, which feels incredibly broken, and I kind of wish maybe one of the 100% rewards was like having this everywhere, once you've got all the shrines just to let you fly everywhere, but it is a cool thing that makes it, it makes it more memorable.
The final ability needs to just be like the Sun Song weather.
We talked about that, yeah.
Like, because it sounds like, because on paper it's just not a hard broken rule. It becomes a broken ability in the application. Like the player is what would make the ability to affect the weather conditions be good, and then they just go on their own.
Thank you, Jeebus. They do not make you clamber back up the mountain.
I know, that would have been so cruel.
But like with the dragons too, because these are definitely a lot different than the dragon style from Skyward Sword. Because Skyward Sword started the whole. They took the Twilight Princess combo names like Eldin and Lanayru, and then gave them to not just a region, but then to a specific guardian of that region. And so I like how the idea of each region has that guardian deity in the form of a dragon. I like we're getting more specific here now with each time. But I like the idea. I like what we're going with that. If anything, I'd like them to see now that they did it with Skyward Sword, like those kind of funky dragon designs were cool, but they went like full character with those with those characters, obviously. But yeah, no, I think just kind of what they're going with those guardians there. Just because we don't see, unfortunately, an idea that I prefer more from Twilight Princess was the light guardians. The light chipmunk and the light snake and those guys, like, those have kind of, maybe the beasts are sort of more the representation of that. But, I don't know. It's Zelda has all this nice juicy lore. It's always fun to just ask the juicy questions that go along with it.
you do. I think it's kind of interesting that you kind of have, in my eyes, different avatars of these dragons, where not only do you have these dragons, which I would say are full-on beast dragons, right? Even though that one talks, like, they are beasts, they are animalistic. But then you have, from the Oracles games, you have what are like the kind of human versions of them, being the Oracles. And then you have, in the middle, there's Skyward Sword, which almost feels like a hybrid form of them, where they are still animalistic, they're dragons, but at the same time, they can speak to you. I mean, I definitely remember the water one, just being like, having a lot of conversations with you to a point where they didn't feel very divine.
I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember we talked a lot.
I remember there was a lot of talking, right? So you have those different types of, that sort of scale there of human avatar, hybrid, and then pure beast. And I like that. It's different, interpretations of the same sort of god, perhaps.
Dragons and Zeldas are like dogs in Disney. You have the broadest of spectrum, because even like with like talkable, characterable dragon people, you'll have bosses and enemies that are just straight up dragons. Like again, the first boss in Zelda 1 in Oracle Seasons is Aquamentus. He's just a straight four-legged dragon with a horn. And then I don't know, it's to Zelda's 1's credit, it's to be a simple boss, but then you have Glico, which is a multi-headed dragon with horns. And they're just your straight like Arthurian green scale bat wings, horn on the head, looks like a brontosaurus, like what that used to look like that. And so you have those types of dragons on top of everything. So like, because it's like Zelda and dragons is very similar to Disney and dogs. It's doesn't make sense all the time.
10, 11, 12. But I think we should have enough now, lads.
Yay!
Also, these courage, the spirit shrines are just really cool too. These are some of the best quests that the game puts out, even if they're not as structured as like the other shrines. I do like all these ones that are tied to the 3 virtue shrines, I guess. Do they ever like hardline mention? Because I mean, it's made again the 3 high goddesses, Din, Nehru, and Furor. Their 3 attributes are power, wisdom, and courage. And so I just don't know if they've ever like had a name for like those attributes to them, because the goddesses are the goddesses, but like what they represent, I don't know if those were like ever given an official name themselves.
I can't think of them ever being given an actual name, which is really disappointing actually when you think about it.
Kind of easy, just sort of they're just on like the 3 virtues, just because this is the trial of, there's a trial of power, trial of courage, trial of wisdom, because those are specifically tied to those 3 gods, which is in Zelda, like in the Zelda text, is separate to when you acknowledge things like Eldin, Lanayru. Those are meant to be, it's kind of like the color wheel. You have 3 primary colors, and then you have the colors in between those. I feel like when you get to Eldin, Lanayru, it's more just like you start to get to mythology, you start to get more like the actual land of Hyrule, and then you start to get to creatures. You start to, I don't know, it's basically steps down, I guess, from, the high. Well, the highest is Hylia, and then under her is the 3. So I need to get my my whole chain of commanding in correct there. I need to correct myself there, because do it. Pull it.
Pull it!
Fine, there we go.
Literally put your heart into it.
I mean, it's a Zelda 1 reference. You get the sword upgrades when you get certain number of hearts. So this is kind of the game's way to recontextualize it. You just need the amount of hearts to stay alive and handle said sword.
It's long as fuck.
And also super frickin' powerful.
But you guys are forgetting how durable it is.
And that too, because it can't break. Can run out of energy, mind, but still.
Oh, that was very poggers, young Link. Now let me tell you a thing.
Until then, you shall rest safely here.
So they kind of went all in on Fi still being in there, like, to the point where she actually fucking talks at one point in this game.
It's so weird. I'm sure that she'll get a good redemption in another game. I have faith in Nintendo character writers. Like, fuck, if Zelda can get Spirit Tracks, Fi can get... It'll happen. And then we'll be like, damn, what a good-ass character. It's like, shame just her introduction was weak.
All they need to do is in Skyward Sword HD or whatever, just tone down the master. Blah blah blah, 10%, battery, etc. things.
I sense there is great
I think that would definitely help, because I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with Fi as a character other than the amount of tutorials that Skyward Sword throws at you through Fi, and also the fact that for the most part she is somewhat Sans personality. But then that's sort of the point, is that she develops more of a personality as you go throughout the game. So it comes and it goes.
I don't know if y'all have like noticed it, but it seems like Navi hate has recently gone down, I'd say over the last couple of years, just with how the game has aged. Like, if anything, just people see it more as part of the game, like part of the graphics. Because I remember, like, when Ocarina of Time first came out, everyone loved the graphics, and then, you know, time goes by, the graphics quality starts to slip, and at this point, like, I feel like now Navi's role in the game, Navi's interactions in the game, it's on the same level as that, and people don't really hate her as the worst character to ever be created in video game like she was in 1999, but I feel like Fi will have this sort of same thing where, just like Tom said very specifically, if they re-release it, they can probably save her whole characterization and just have her be a weird character, but at least not something that's interrupting your gameplay at every moment.
Can I just say about Navi, I went to the original Symphony of the Goddess, which was great, wonderful experience. But at one point in there, between the different pieces, they play Navi going "hello" right before they start to get into the Ocarina of Time, and it's this cute thing to sort of show that they're transitioning to it. And one nerd in the audience decided to yell, "Shut up, Navi." And it was the cringiest thing I've ever seen, because we're all there, like, you're at a symphony, we're there dressed nicely in, like, our suits and stuff, and I felt the cringe permeate the entire place.
Did your entire skin shift like 2 centimeters?
Oh, it was the worst, and the worst part is, there was no laughter.
No one agreed. He thought he was the man. He played the most Zelda and he knew Zelda more than everyone else, and he was gonna interrupt the symphony with his shenanigans. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's a choice. And for anybody who is thinking of going, to see any sort of classical music concert, whether it's video games or not, yeah, please don't ever do that, because that's not okay. There's a whole debate over when you should applaud, because typical classical music concerts is generally you wait until the end of a movement to do that, whereas I think more the video game concert versions, they're much happier for you to applaud as you go and you hear your favourite songs, because it's a different vibe.
Different cultures will have different rules, and I figure just whatever the rules of the show you're at are, most of the time they let you know at the beginning. They'll be like, you like it, jam on. Versus when you usually get to high class, like, the rules are implied, so you probably should just look it up on the internet first, lest you make a fool of yourself.
But at all of them, you do not shout out unless you are specifically told that you're allowed to shout out, and that's usually only at things like the Rocky Horror Show.